Hello. So it is evening time here in South Africa, but that's not stopping me from reading another piece from The Prophet by Khalil Gibran, and I sort of looked at this part, and it's about joy and sorrow and whatever else that I'm going to read. So I'm just gonna go right into it, and yeah. Then a woman said, "Speak to us of joy and sorrow." And he answered, "Your joy is your sorrow unmasked. And the selfsame well from which your laughter rises was oftentimes filled with your tears. And how else can it be? The deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain. Is not the cup that holds your wine the very cup that was burned in the potter's oven? And is not the lute that soothes your spirit the very wood that was hollowed with knives? When you are joyous, look deep into your heart, and you shall find it is only that which has given you sorrow that is giving you joy. When you are sorrowful, look again in your heart, and you shall see that in truth you are weeping for that which has been your delight. Some of you say, joy is greater than sorrow, and others say, nay, sorrow is the greater. But I say unto you, they are inseparable. Together they come, and when one sits alone with you at your board, remember that the other is asleep upon your bed. Verily, you are suspended like scales between your sorrow and your joy. Only when you are empty are you at standstill and balanced. When the treasure keeper lifts you to weigh his gold and his silver, needs must your joy or your sorrow rise or fall. Joy and sorrow. It seems that you can't really have the one without the other. What I mean by that is that joy and sorrow, they both are important for the other to exist, and whatever that comes in between that can only exist because they both do. And I think that in between those two is life, and is experiences, and is whatever the case may be that facilitates the experience or the encounter with joy or sorrow. And that reminds me about contrast, and it reminds me about being able to see clearly, being able to also discern, and being able to recognize, like whoever he was speaking about did, like some recognized, oh, that the sorrow is greater for them, and others recognize that the joy is greater. But I didn't hear it said that there is no joy that ever exists and there's no sorrow that ever exists. It is almost like we all have that at the same time, but the proportion of each of them together is not quite the same. And I think that over time that can definitely change, and just like the seasons. And I think it's important to know which is which, and to know that they are definitely, I agree, inseparable. So I think that if you are feeling like the greater of those is pretty much sorrow, and that's maybe what you're experiencing now in this season of your life, then it's important to keep in mind that, there might be sorrow now, but there will be joy. Joy is coming. There is joy to be had and to be experienced, and it cannot all be sorrow, because if it's all sorrow, that, let's say sorrow is like darkness, um, and joy is light. Um, if you just had sorrow, it would just all be dark, and then you really, you wouldn't be able to even speak of light. You wouldn't be able to speak of sorrow. Like, what is that? You wouldn't even know that there's something beyond that, and the other way around. And I find it interesting that you can take sort of different perspectives or different stances, and sort of view it from different sides, and yet be in that point of view as well, and also be able to see that you can make changes to the way that things are proportioned, so that you can sort of manage the manage the balance of the way that you're being, and your experience of life that you're having right now. You can make that better, and almost like if you're editing, or adjusting lighting or certain things, let's say in Photoshop on a photograph or something like that, or whatever, you're just making little adjustments. You're adjusting things a little bit and tweaking them, or you're identifying, oh, whoa, this is a bit, top heavy, or bottom heavy, or whatever the case may be. And you can perhaps do this and apply that, and or let go of that, or spend less time on this, that, whatever, or spend more time, or, there are so many things that you can do to help make neither one of them too overwhelming. And I think that it's really important to have experienced both, and having worked through both, and having gotten to understanding both of them as well. And then obviously the in-between part is really important. There's process in that, there's progress, there's creativity, there's stories, there's testimony, there is all the rest of what they don't quite say, or stand for, or it's like they are, it's almost like their core something. I just ooh, now I'm kind of thinking about joy and sorrow, and if you had one, let's say, in each hand, and you felt the weight of each of them, and I suppose I feel like I want to ask a question, what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to sacrifice? You can't have hands so full, and or trying to juggle whatever it is. What are you going to do, if you fall, or if you need to use your hand for other things, and then, like, what are you gripping onto? And then I feel like if you're holding on to both, you can't possibly be feeling any kind of balance. You're probably like, so yeah. And then I feel like doing like bringing into a yin yang, and then letting it go, type of thing, the joy and the sorrow. And sort of, as you bring it into the yin yang, there's the different proportions to them both, and they fit into one another, but they don't bleed into one another. they are though both together and in sort of a greater whole, and then within that there is, I think, something to be found in which it resembles perhaps, you know, a core stability, something that, like um, that you can perhaps find through grounding techniques or things like that, and different sort of maybe mental exercises, or literally processing, like, and facing certain things you have to face, and doing some, you know, maintenance within you, and checking your heart and your head and your body and seeing what's up. And I think that if there is excess sorrow lying around, you might want to tidy that up a little bit and make room for more joy to come in, and just set the space into like a type of atmosphere that can perhaps facilitate a presencing of grace, the spirit of that, and an atmosphere that is generous enough, generous and giving, so that you can receive that which you really truly need, maybe, and desire. And also to make room for that which is new, and that which is fulfilling, that which is life-giving, light-giving, love-giving, and that which is sort of the uh, essence of what a blessing is. And yeah, just there's something in that. And I think that peace is definitely, it seems like that is a reward of some kind, the blessing. It's almost like peace is the blessing that you receive from having balanced your joy and your sorrow. And you have to choose to do that. And I think that in order to balance the two, you have to both approach them and sort of get to know them, deal with them, and then also sort of step back and let them go, and let them sort of come together in a way that is more like orderly, but that's probably not the right word, and I'm trying to search for one that is nice to say now, but I can't think of one. And now I'm thinking of the word chaos, and I'm feeling definitely some effects of mind control. Sorry. So I'm thinking that I want to mull it over a couple of times, the whole balancing joy and sorrow, and that which you know of it, and that which you understand of it, in such a way that you can step back from it, having dealt with it. I mean, you can see it clearly, but you can also be stable and balanced, and you're not sort of letting either of them dictate sort of your reality necessarily, or you're not letting them necessarily be at competition with one another, or you're not necessarily leaving either one of them out, because that is like, of whichever one it is, it's kind of like avoiding and ignoring like a huge portion that ultimately cannot really be ignored. It's like, and you need that. You need, sometimes you need the black for the white to come together in order to create a contrast, so that you can expose clarity. And so there is something that comes from that working together and leaving and checking, okay, I'm here, that is there. I've experienced with that. I feel like I can handle it. There it is together. I see the proportions. I can adjust so and so, or I can adjust myself, but ultimately I am balanced, and that is something that can sometimes affect my balance, but it is not balance itself. And there is a type of um, reward that comes from that whole motion and applied action, and that whole effort, that time and attention you put into that whole thing, and that is peace. I think you do, yeah, you do get a sense of peace. You do, you do. You get a sense of peace, you're at ease, you feel most certainly a sense of fulfillment. You have perhaps also feel like you can breathe and feel like you are here, like you have contributed, but also like you were a part of something. And I find that to be interesting. And obviously, peace can apply to many areas of life. Peace can apply to something small, like I don't want to give you an abstract example, but I mean, I'm kind of thinking now that peace is like love. If you add peace to anything, so I'm just blurting this out now. If you add peace to anything, it becomes more joyful and less sorrowful. And I think that I want to amend that and say that if you add peace, not to anything, but if you add peace to joy, your sorrow becomes less or less intense. And if you add peace to sorrow, your joy becomes more intense. Or if you introduce peace to either one of them, you give